Who do we got on here? We have Beatrice on. She was first one to sign on. Great, Beatrice. Then Mike Wiesner, Norm Hughes. Who else do we got? Mike Overacker. That looks like all for right now. So we'll get more on later.
Scott, can you hear me? Scott,
Yeah?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I guess that was a silly question because when you said yeah, that pretty well told me the answer.
No, I can't hear you.
No, Ken, I can't hear you.
And Wade's on, Wade Prunty, Harold Locke. Our friends are on. It's awesome.
Anybody else on, Scott?
Well, I might have mentioned Norm is on. Harold Locke. Who else? Beatrice, she was the first one to sign on. Mike Wiesner's on, I believe. Wade. I just shared it to some groups that we typically share to.
Hey, Scott, watch these transitions that Paul's got developed. He's got a wiper.
NASA's Hubble Space Telescope has established an extraordinary new benchmark, detecting the light of a star that existed within the first billion years after the universe's birth in the Big Bang, the farthest individual star ever seen to date. The newly detected star is 12.9 billion light-years away, meaning that the light took 12.9 billion years to reach Earth. The previous record was 9 billion light-years away. Normally at these distances, entire galaxies look like small, dim smudges with the light from millions of stars blending together. But the galaxy hosting this star was magnified and distorted by gravitational lensing into a long crescent that astronomers named the Sunrise Arc. Gravitational lensing occurs when a tremendous mass warps the fabric of space, creating a powerful natural magnifying glass that distorts and greatly amplifies the light from distant objects behind it. The combined mass of a foreground group of galaxies created a lens that allowed astronomers to see this distant star. After studying the galaxy in detail, they determined that one feature is an extremely magnified star that they called Arundel, which means morning star in Old English. The research team estimates that Arundel is at least 50 times the mass of our Sun and millions of times as bright, rivaling the most massive stars known. Arundel existed so long ago that it may not have had all the same raw materials as the stars around us today. Studying Arundel will be a window into an era of the universe that we are unfamiliar with, but that led to everything we know today.
I'm muted.
I was the
Hi,
one that was
everyone.
muted all that time, and then you
I
were.
was working on my desk and it was making like desk noise, so anyways, but Scott Roberts and Kent Marts from Explore Scientific and the Explore Alliance, and this is the 77th FirstLight Chronicles program. So happy to have you here. Let me bring Kent on with me. Kent's got, he's got a very fancy setup there in the studio. It looks nice.
I did it all myself.
Beautiful.
Actually, Paul did it. Yep.
Yeah,
So
Paul's doing all the background work there. He's got like this two-camera thing going on, and you
he's
do
now
look
got
a little
5.
pink there.
Sir?
I said you do look a little bit pink.
Well, I did get some sun Saturday, so
Oh, that's
maybe,
true. That's true.
maybe it was cloudy and I forgot to put sunscreen on for my first 3 baseball games, and
Uh-oh.
put it on and got a pretty good sunburn. Which is I try not to. I'm always that guy making everybody else put sunscreen on, and nobody did that morning because it was cloudy, and I paid the price on this side of my
Oh,
head.
yeah. The cloudy
so-
skies can still sun. You can get a big
Oh, yeah.
sunburn off of that. So
Didn't even think about it. So
right.
But hey, it's the way it goes. So anyway, what's going on today, Scott?
Well, we had a tornado last night. So
Yes, we
here in
did.
Springdale, that got some of my friends excited. They were watching it on the news, I guess. I think it touched down something like 4 a.m. or something along
Right.
those lines.
So
I remember there was lots of lightning and thunder and stuff like that, and where I was staying in Fayetteville, but Explore Scientific is here in Springdale. But I didn't see any.
No, it was all east of us. I was about a mile and a half, mile and a quarter from the closest place to where it got to us. We were
Yeah.
back off to the east, out there on
Yeah.
the east side, and
Yeah,
here's some
check it
video
out.
of it. So yeah, it was Charles, who it was within a couple hundred yards of his house, and he's a photographer for the Weather Channel, lives here.
Oh,
And
wow.
So this is in Johnson. Yeah, this is in Johnson, and so
That's
he,
in Johnson. Oh my goodness, look at that.
which is south of us here.
So
So
what was this building right here?
auto body shop, Paul says.
Autobahn. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully not
So-
my favorite Mexican restaurant that's in
Yep.
Johnson.
So Charles went down to Louisiana yesterday morning to cover predicted bad storms in Louisiana
Ah.
and Mississippi,
And
and
got a sunroof now.
gotta have a sunroof.
Yeah.
And went to Mississippi, Louisiana to cover the predicted storms there. And his wife ended up covering the storm here for him. And her video made it on the Weather Channel because
Oh,
he didn't have
wow.
any storms where he was.
Yeah. Well, she would know how to do it, so.
She's been on plenty of chases with him and stuff.
Yeah,
so-
she sure has. Yeah,
Grab
that's
the
made it a
camera.
little exciting for people here.
Yeah, so-
That's really, for those people that got big damage to their homes and stuff, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
it appears I've heard of no fatalities so far. That's a cell phone tower that blew down.
Wow.
Behind the Sonic and Johnson. Johnson is a little town between Fayetteville and Springdale.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
not sure
I
whose
guess-
drone footage that was, but there we go. So
Right.
anyway, we were, what was that? Oh, okay. So sorry. So Scott, we're going to do something here.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and just announce this now. We've decided to have a flash sale. And to execute this, you got to be an Explore Scientific member. And we are going to offer, and we don't have this up on the website yet. Between all the broadcasts and everything else, I didn't get it up, but it will be up this evening. We are going to offer our Explore Scientific / Bresser 25 millimeter eyepiece. So there's some
This is a 70-degree apparent field
25
2-inch
millimeter
eyepiece.
eyepiece. Correct.
Yeah.
They're not waterproof. This is
No.
not a waterproof eyepiece, and they're branded both Explore Scientific and Bresser. It's going to be mix and match. What you get is what you get. They're exactly the same.
They're
other than
excellent.
branding.
They're excellent eyepieces. Nice wide field.
Right.
They are, lots of eye relief. So if you're looking for, it's galaxy season right now. So if you're looking for something to find, galaxy groups and that kind of thing, absolutely, this is your eyepiece. Orion is still up a little bit, in the evening. And so it would be a beautiful, definitely a beautiful
Right.
field of view in there. And
Imported
you'll
too would be
find-
nice in that. Right.
Yeah, it's got a nice
So-
sharp, field stop in it, nice coatings.
Edge blackened.
Edge blackened lenses. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
All
So-
those things.
The price is going to be crazy pricing, Scott.
Of course it is.
It's like $50. Crazy
$50
pricing.
for a 2-inch eyepiece. Yeah.
2-inch eyepiece, $50. The deal is you got to be an Explore Scientific, Explore Alliance member, and so
Yep.
there's the eyepiece
You
right
can
there.
be, you can be a premium member or a free member if you'd like.
Right. So when you go onto our website, you can go to Explore Alliance and buy the free Explore Alliance membership if you're not already an Explore Alliance member.
Yeah.
And you can then go on and add the eyepiece to your cart and check out, and there you go. So there will be shipping involved,
Yeah.
but
If they buy something else, then they
Right.
can get, like it's, I think, $250 or something.
$250 qualifies for free shipping.
Free shipping.
you'll be
And-
able
And if
to-
you're a free member now and you get, you want to be a premium member, a platinum member, you can get an instant $100, gift card on it. And so you could take the gift off of that. But you'd have to contact customer service for that to make
Right,
that
you'd have to
work.
go through customer service at 866, excuse me, starting over,
252.
866-252-3811. And you can call customer service 8 to 5 Central Time, Monday through Friday. And hurry, because the sale is going to end early next week. This is a flash sale. It's not going to go a long time. But we're going to talk about it today and tomorrow and Friday. And maybe early next week, and then and cut it off. So 866-252-3811, and that'll pop you into the switchboard, and you can, I believe it's options 1 or 2, but you can either check on an order or customer service. Go through listen to the menu and pick the option, and you'll go that way. The other way you can go is on the website. Go down to the bottom of the web page and click on customer service portal, and you can send a request that way in writing, so you don't have to try and get through the switchboard, because the customer service folks are busy, and people think we don't answer the phone. Well, we're answering the phone as fast as we can, but sometimes there's more calls than we have ability to answer phones, and so that's where we go. So $50 for a premium, high quality, 70 degree apparent field of view, 25 millimeter eyepiece, for $50.
Yeah.
You can't beat that price. Now, this eyepiece, Scott, doesn't come in the standard decorative Wilterian box. It comes in simply standard plastic
It comes in an
screw on,
eyepiece
screw off,
case. Yeah. The eyepiece case is
eyepiece
nice.
cover to protect your investment. And like I said, for $50, there's going to be shipping on it. But while you're there, if you go ahead and spend $250, you get free shipping on the whole kit and caboodle. And again, as you said, by joining the Explore Alliance,
Yeah.
and you pay the premium membership of $99.99, we will then turn around and send you a gift card worth $100. Or, like Scott said, if you go through customer service,
Customer
we'll
service can
apply
do the
that gift card
instant.
immediately to the purchase price of that. We just ask that you're spending more than $100. So, we go ahead and use that gift card at one fell swoop if you can. So anyway, Scott, what I want to talk about today, you're talking about Galaxy season is coming up.
Yeah.
It's also spring season in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And in South America, it's the fall. It's a good time to get outside. It's not hot. It's warming up. It's not freezing cold. It's a really good time. More and more people are getting outside and doing stuff. And that is the perfect time to go out and do some public outreach. We all love astronomy. Give back to this hobby by recruiting new people. And it's not a hard sell. You just go out somewhere and set up a telescope and people just sort of start coming. You might have to be a little bit circus barker and say, hey, you want to come see whatever your M42, or you want to come see this or that, or
whatever works for you. You just want to be inviting and have some information about the object that you're looking at.
Right.
Obviously, I used to keep a sheet when I first started doing this, Kent. I really only knew, when I first started doing amateur astronomy and selling telescopes, it was kind of like thrown on me. So I could find the moon. That was about it. I knew how to find the Big Dipper and the moon. I didn't know how to find Orion. I didn't know how to find deep sky objects, none of that. But I would roll big telescopes out in front of the store, that the Oceanside Photographics Center store, which eventually became known as OPT, or Oceanside Photo and Telescope. But we'd roll big telescopes out front, and people would be coming down the Pacific Coast Highway, which was known as Hill Street at the time. And man, they would slam on the brakes and they would come in and, how powerful is that telescope? And so, I'd say, well, it's powerful enough to see craters on the moon. And they would see the craters on the moon. And for a lot of them, for the very first time, they're seeing craters on the moon, like this. So
was that a Coulter 13-inch telescope you used?
All kinds of, I had the Coulter 13. I had, we had a telescope that we called Big Bertha, which was a 12-inch f8. You can imagine how long this tube was. It was really long. You had to climb a ladder to go look in this Newtonian telescope, a 12-inch f8 Newtonian. And then we had refractors and, the Celestron line of telescopes like C90s and 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrains and stuff. I just line them up in front of the store, and people would come out. And of course, the do it first, ask permission later nature that I had. Sometimes the police would come and tell me I couldn't do this without my permit, so but a lot of people got to see their first views of the moon like that, and it was a lot of fun. It was a big education for me and really inspired me to keep looking at more objects and learning how to find more objects in the sky. So I loved it.
So, and Scott, this is not just limited to nighttime. If you have a solar safe filter, whether it's one of our sun catchers or another filter, you can go out, if you have, more expensive lunts and quarks and all sorts of different specialized just solar telescopes. But with our sun catcher, your telescope, you look at the moon, you can go out and look at the sun as well. You learn how to do it safely. And you did that on Friday with Tyler out at Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art here in Northwest Arkansas. We got some video of that. Paul, you want to cue up that beautiful beam footage? Oh, that's a TV commercial, right? So here we go.
Oh, yeah. I was showing
That's
this yesterday a
Cowboy
little bit.
Scott, Black Scott, so to speak. So you did a hybrid outreach event. We were doing live broadcast,
Yeah.
and you were out there on a deck by the restaurant, and
Yes.
nice shot of your
It was
eye,
great.
Scott.
I mean, we had 2 solar hydrogen alpha filter setups and 2 white light
Right.
telescope setups. And the sun was being very active. It was great. So
Yeah. So that's the nice part about it right now. We're moving towards solar maximum, and we're getting more and more sunspots. And I don't know, it seems like it's been 4 or 5 years since we had 3 or 4 years anyway, since we've had very many sunspots. And a blank sun is not much to look at, but sunspots give you a whole lot of things to see and look at and marvel. And the one thing I like about sunspots is it's one of the few things you actually can see move and grow and change in a telescope up in the sky right before your eyes. You can see the shadow line on the moon change. You can see the planets of Jupiter rotate, the moons of Jupiter rotate. You can see the moons of Saturn move if you watch long enough. And otherwise, nothing else really changes up in the sky and over the time scale of just a few minutes. But, sunspots, you can actually watch ones. You see this little area and it looks funny, and all of a sudden you realize it's starting to grow, and boom, it gets dark, and a sunspot appears right before your eyes. And I find that really fascinating to see that sunspot just appear right before your eyes. So
right.
all it takes is going out and doing it, being brave enough, and go to where people are. John Dobson, preached that on the sidewalks of San Francisco. It was San Francisco, right? Scott,
Sorry.
John was in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, he was a monk.
Right.
He was a monk, and I'm paraphrasing his life story right now, but basically what happened is that he got very interested in looking at the stars and realized that even from downtown, from like Fisherman's Wharf, which is super light polluted, that you could, with enough aperture, okay, you could see deep sky objects. And so he's showing Messier objects from downtown San Francisco, galaxies and stuff like that. A lot of people think that if you live in the city, this is a myth about telescopes. If you live in the city, that buying a telescope of lots and lots of aperture, that the aperture is wasted, okay? And that you should just have a small telescope in the city. That's absolutely not true, okay? That's absolutely not true, because I guarantee you, if you had a 60-inch aperture telescope in downtown Fisherman's Wharf, okay, San Francisco, and then you had, my little 40 millimeter refractor, that the 60-inch would utterly blow it away, okay? You could see many deep sky objects and millions of more stars than you can with a smaller telescope. So,
and 60-inch telescope reflector is a big telescope, and we're getting ready to start to sell those things.
65-inch, yeah, that's right.
Aren't we, Scott?
Yes, we are. Yes,
so you want to talk about that a little bit?
Actually, pretty soon you're going to see a press release about it. But Norman Fulham, who's the owner of Optique Fulham, he's been on Global Star Party a few times. He plays guitar, he sings. He's an artisan, but he's also an amazing telescope maker and an amazing optician, all self-taught. Okay, so there was no college or school or anything they went to about this. It simply was something he did out of a need because, he, as a musician, he had kind of hit rock bottom, and he found that by looking up and using a telescope that it changed his frame of mind, and he realized that he needed to get into this more and to have a telescope, a nice telescope of his own, but he couldn't afford to buy one, so he made it. He made his own telescope. I think it was probably a 8-inch or a 6-inch reflector. And then he was good with wood. Okay. So he started making these incredibly beautiful wooden tubed Newtonian telescopes on a Dobsonian type of base. If you've ever seen one of these things, they're works of art. He still makes them. But then he started building bigger telescopes, and he's had a couple of false starts in establishing a distributorship in the past. But I think part of the Mutual Admiration Society took hold. I really think that Norman is a gifted and amazing individual, a great businessman as well. And so, he approached me on one weekend and asked me, what do I think about becoming a distributor for Fulham Optics? And I said, well, gosh, let's look at it. Let's figure out what the relationship would look like. And we did come to an agreement. And so Explore Scientific will be selling his folded Newtonians, which range from 30 inches all the way up to 65 inches. And these have go-to systems on them. They can be custom configured, with a variety of eyepieces that we can supply. So that's kind of the start of it. You'll start to see these things pop up on our website here in the next week or so. You'll see a press release come out probably next week. And, so we're really happy about it. We're excited about it. We're already starting to get inquiries. So I've already started to respond to some people that are interested in owning something that amazing. These are not cheap telescopes by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so this is, if you have to ask how much, if you got a few $100,000 that you'd like to spend on a telescope, the 30-inch doesn't, it's still, I think it's still under $100,000, but it's up there. So these are telescopes to satisfy people's dreams about owning a majorly large aperture telescope that you can, that you're not going to have to build a giant observatory for, because they're folded. The 30-inch telescope, you can literally just walk up to it and look up at the eyepiece, and you don't even need a ladder. Average height man can walk up to the eyepiece.
These are not mass-produced telescopes.
No.
Each one
Totally
he builds
custom.
one at a time, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, it'll probably be an arrangement where you come to us, there's a deposit that's put down, and once building is established, it's a done deal. You're going to be locked into it, but that's the nature of big telescopes.
And there are beautiful things to look at.
Yeah, and to look through.
The metal trusses. I mean, they're just beautiful to see. The pictures are just awesome. So anyway, got sidetracked a little bit. So, when you go out and do a star party, you want to research a little bit. If you're going to be looking at the moon, if you've got a new moon, read up on the moon a little bit. I'll do this, even though I'm decent at it. If I'm going to be looking at the moon, I'm going to look at, read just real quick some things about the moon. If you're going to be doing solar astronomy and, you're using a white light filter, bone up on what it is and what it's showing. Bone up on what sunspots are. If you're using, a specialized hydrogen alpha or other filtering systems for dedicated astronomy or solar telescopes, familiarize yourself with what you're looking at and what they do, so you can speak accurately and from a position of knowledge when people ask questions about what's going on, and you can address them from a position of knowledge. Same with, if you're going to be looking at Messier objects, it's a simple thing. Go plan what you're going to look at and look at the things you know about and can talk well on, and don't get sidetracked into looking at stuff that you don't know much about. You want to come off and be able to explain what's going on, but you also want to make it very approachable and understandable, because you got to start looking up, and you got to start with a nod to Ed Gunther, our friend. The Mark 1R and the Mark 1L, the original astronomical devices, you just got to start looking up and seeing things, and encourage those people who come and look at your telescope to think more about their place in the universe. I mean, the video that you showed to start the show, Scott, absolutely fascinating. A picture of a star 12.8 billion light years away.
Right.
That's how it looked 12.8 billion years ago. The universe was very young then, and it's fascinating to think, and I hadn't thought about it until, that star very possibly doesn't have, because there hadn't been a lot of supernovas to seed the universe with heavy metals and heavier,
Oh, yeah.
heavier atoms.
Much different
that hadn't been made
composition
yet.
than stars are today.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
The composition of that star is going to be probably vast. After I heard that, I was like, well, yeah, it's going to be vastly different star than what our star is, and it'll be interesting to see what they can tease out. In the James Webb Space Telescope is
Yeah.
going to be astounding to see, what it's able to see, and the science it's going to produce in the next, 24 years that it's up there in space doing
Yeah.
its thing.
Right.
So
I think that, I mean, they kept talking about how far back that Jay West was going to be able to capture for us, but they found the star in a gravitationally lensed galaxy, where they
Right.
they become like arcs of light, and so this particular galaxy is called the Sunrise Arc, which I just think that's a beautiful name for it, and so it was just really incredible that they were able to find a single individual star. Now, they said that this star is like 1,000,000 times brighter than our sun is. But just, gravitational lensing, that effect is really, adding like incredible power to the telescopes that we already have, right? So it's like its own telescope. The universe is making a telescope for us to be able to look back into time like that.
And it's one of the proofs of Einstein's theories. Einstein predicted that was possible. And, it's amazing that Einstein was able to think of all this stuff and never really do any experiments. Never, he was able to think through what was going to happen and establish, principles that are still holding to this day. And it's just fascinating to think that we're seeing something, that's
Oh yeah, back to the
beginning.
beginning of time for us.
I can't remember when I think it was the ionization period ended, after like
It was before
300
my
million
time,
years,
for sure.
when the universe cooled enough for light to be able to be seen.
Yes,
That has to be getting back close to that era, that epic.
right.
Going by memory here, I haven't read up on it, which is a dangerous thing, because I could just be proving how much I don't really remember.
Well, as Jay West and Hubble like compete with each other, I think that the guys, they're gonna find things with Jay West, and then they're gonna go back through the Hubble data, I think, one more time to go, aha, okay, we were seeing this, we just didn't know it. It's like
Right.
it's like amateur astronomers. When I remember seeing the first amateur image of the jet coming from Cygnus X1, and they didn't think, this obviously was going to take a massive instrument to see something like that. But yeah, no, you could see like a little triangle coming off of it and go, that's a jet, so.
Well, it's like the pillars of creation.
Yeah, even that one, that's that's a good example. Once they knew what they were looking at with Hubble, with star formation and those tendrils coming up, then you could go back to amateur images and go, wait a minute, there's, newborn stars right here, right here, right here,
Yeah. And
embryonic stars there.
and then that challenged people to go, well, I can do that with my telescope. And
Right.
people went out and did and took pictures that today rival the quality of the original images that they got of the pillars of
Right.
creation.
Just when you think that that's as good as it's going to get, amateur astronomers prove everybody wrong again and again every year.
Yeah.
So,
well, look at Jerry Hubble. Jerry,
exoplanets, right?
He measures the transit of exoplanets using a filter that costs $200 or $250 and an Explore Scientific 165 millimeter telescope, and he's able to provide science level data to NASA and confirm candidate exoplanets, stars with an exoplanet going around them. And to think that you could do that with what, under $10,000 worth of gear, maybe $15,000
way under $10,000 worth of gear. I mean, way under $10,000 worth of gear. The filter itself probably would work on most any 6-inch telescope. They were first used on 4-meter class telescopes. Okay, but this diffuser that he used and the technique of looking at the light curve really was what made it all possible. So, it's quite possible to find. It may be possible to find it with a 4-inch telescope even. So you could probably take. I would gamble that you could probably take 114 millimeter, one of the least expensive Newtonians that we sell today, something like a 114 on one of our inexpensive mounts, a telescope that cost under $200. Okay, take a diffuser that would cost you about as much as the whole telescope would. Okay, and you're going to need some sort of camera, and with patience and all of that, I do believe that you could capture exoplanets, because now we know how to do it. We know how to see it. Okay, we know how to detect it.
So Scott, we need to come up with a prize for that, and set some parameters, like the Bendix prize, or the prize for the first person that does this. You hear all these prizes.
First person to confirm an exoplanet with a telescope system that costs under $1,000 or something.
Yeah, exactly. We need to do that. That would be fantastic. You have to produce science, verifiable science, that you were able to generate light curve repeatedly of a transiting exoplanet.
Right.
That would be.
Well, NASA kind of did that because they went on this whole program of doing it, cheaper, faster, better. Okay. And, when you think of, let's just take the Voyager spacecraft. Those were not inexpensive spacecraft, but they squeezed every last drop of science out of those spacecraft that they could. They're still working. They're still getting data. They're out of our solar system, but we're still getting data from it. And the missions would change because they still had fuel. They still had electric power. And they could still communicate. They did the grand tour, and then they went, they flew out of the solar system, and we're still collecting data about what interstellar space is like right now.
If I remember correctly, they have a 10-watt radio, and to tease that signal out of the background, cosmic background radiation, takes the entire ability of the Deep Space Network space radio telescopes. Every dish has to listen and then put those signals together to hear, to hear it go, here's the data, and start sending back data from the instruments that were just absolutely a feat of human engineering right there. Right. And it's fast. It's like they're like 32 light hours away, some distance like that. Voyager 2 is that far away. Just
Yeah, so
astounding.
a lot of people don't think about humanity this way, but we are a spacefaring species. We have humans in space 24/7. The International Space Station has been continuously occupied since we started putting people up there. Okay, we have our, I call them our appliances, but we have like over 20 interplanetary spacecraft operating right now in our solar system, and then we've got at least two and maybe three. I have to go back and see if New Horizons is towards the edge of the universe, or maybe it's could be one of the Mariner spacecraft is also out of the solar system, out of the influence of the sun at this point. So we have, you could say, I mean, if you think of humanity exerting its influence out there, through our robotic telescopes and robotic spacecraft, that is our sphere of influence in the solar system. So we're not quite interplanetary yet, but we are out in interstellar space now. And so that's, we are a spacefaring species, period.
And then, the Artemis project with the gateway, the landing pad halfway to the moon is going to revolutionize, establishing a full-time, habitation on the moon, and have an easy way to get from, microgravity at the gateway back and forth to the moon, and use almost no energy doing it, because 1/6 of the gravity to get off the moon, and then effectively very, very little energy to leave the gateway and go back to the moon. It's going to be fascinating to see all that go. And I think June 22nd is the launch date for Artemis 1, sometime in June. I wouldn't hold your breath on that, because how those launches go. NASA's going to make sure, just like SpaceX and Blue Origin and all the others, they're going to make sure everything is just right before they actually, launch that rocket. But when they launch the rocket and then come back and actually has a human mission,
check
to
100
go around
times
the
launch
moon,
once,
and then a human mission to land on the moon, is going to be fascinating. And I know people go, why waste those billions and billions of dollars when they could do so much work? If we had that attitude, well, why spend all that money to figure out how to cross-pollinate peas? Why spend all that money and time trying to figure out how Velcro works? Why spend that time, coming up with a surface that nothing will stick to? That's just a waste of time. And why should we spend all that money on those programs?
Yeah, they're all spin-offs from Apollo, I think, right?
Yeah, Teflon comes from Apollo. Freeze-dried food was a huge push, and medical insights, and there's so many things that we use in our daily lives that are attributable to the space program, and we all forget about it. We don't recognize it because it's just part of our lives today. Maybe we should do a show on that, Scott, and talk about what gadgets and things we have today grew directly out of Apollo and its predecessor programs.
Yeah, and challenge the audience to list spin-off technology that we use every day. So GPS, I mean, it's just so much, and it's now becoming almost invisible to us, if you're, if you live in a in a civilization where you use a lot of technology. There are places in the world where people don't have a lot of technology, and so, but that's becoming less and less as generations go by.
When you make an international phone call, thank a satellite for that. When you see an international television broadcast, thank a satellite from that. When you're
doing an international broadcast right now over the internet,
correct.
So
when you're using your smartphone to navigate to a place you've never been to before, thank a satellite. because all that happens because GPS or communications channels that go around the world. So anyway, 448, the coming attractions tomorrow. We've got On the Wing. We'll be doing
Okay.
the Facebook broadcast warm up at 1:30-ish. And then at 2 o'clock, we'll be doing Amazon Live. And there's a contest going on right now, Scott. And Paul, can you run that video? Yeah, Paul's going to get up the video.
I can't, it won't pump the audio.
You can't pump the audio through? Okay, so you can't pump the audio through. So we have a contest going on right now that is trying to boost our followers on Amazon Live because we're trying to reach 2,000 followers, because once you reach that point, we raise up a tier and they start promoting us to more and more people. And so more and more people will get access to our educational programs, the things we do on that platform, and will become a bigger piece of the Explore Scientific family. So you have to follow the page. So if we go to Amazon Live, and can you put up the link, Paul, to that Amazon Live? So we can get the Amazon Live link up. You go to it, and then go to our web page, and you can register as a follower, and that enters you into the prize. Tomorrow is the last day. So if you want to, the 31st, yeah, that's tomorrow, right? Or is it Friday? Through the 31st, that's tomorrow. So that'll end tomorrow. So if you want to do that, there you go. There's the link out there Scott just put out. So, that will help us spread the message of education through Amazon Live. And it's a, large platform. There's lots of people on Amazon Live, lots of home gadgets and makeup and home care and, stuff like that. We look like we're the leader in the astronomical technology or astronomy technology, sports optics. We have been on for, I don't know, since December 28th, I think was our first broadcast. So we're like 70 broadcasts in or something like that. And Paul has done a great job of using limited equipment and creating new ways to do this. And shout out to Noah Menard, a person that you never see. But if you ever look on Amazon Live, Noah's the guy who keeps the Explore Scientific store on Amazon Live running. And I assume Tyler's going to have a focus on astronomy for Friday. Have you heard, Paul or Scott? Is he going to be there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we'll have the program. Tyler will have to fill me in on, if he's having a special guest on.
So anyway, so that's the lineup, and then standard lineup for next week. But again, Explore Scientific or a breast or eyepiece. As soon as this meeting gets over, or our program gets over with, I'm going to go put it up and get the sale up on our website. It's a flash sale. It'll be ending probably Monday next week. You can buy a 70 millimeter, nice generous 70 millimeter wide apparent field of view, 25 millimeter eyepiece. Going to work with, it's a 2-inch eyepiece, so you have to have a 2-inch diagonal for it to work. But the price can't be better, $50. Now, you're going to have to pay shipping for that. But if you want to avoid shipping, you can spend $250 and get free shipping and save those shipping costs, as well as to buy it, you have to be an Explore Alliance member. Really simple. At the checkout, you can put both of the Explore Alliance membership, the free membership, and the eyepiece. You're still going to have to pay shipping on it, but it's the deal. You got to be an Explore Alliance member, or you can take the Platinum membership, which is $99.99, and buy that membership, and we will send you a $100 gift card back. That's good for anything on the Explore Scientific store. If you want us to apply that gift card to the purchase of the eyepiece, you'll have to contact customer service to do that. Really simple, 866-252-3811. And Paul's going to probably type that across my face at some point. He's laughing about that. And you can call us 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday, or go to our webpage, go down to the bottom, find the customer portal, and you can send your information to us. We will contact you and arrange the payment, and you can apply that $100 gift card instantly to the eyepiece and have a $50 balance. And we prefer that you go ahead and spend it all at that time, but you don't have to, but it makes life a whole lot easier if you do that. So there's a customer service number up right now. And Paul even typed it correctly. Very good, Paul. Your fingers work well. Thank goodness. So right now, Paul would be saying something if he could pump his microphone in the broadcast, but he can't. So there you go. Scott, anybody you want to do shout outs for? You know, we always have people, conversations going on. Who's with us?
We had some comments here. You know, I mentioned earlier that Beatrice Hines was the first one to log in, followed by Mike Wiesner. So she beat Mike to the punch, which is great. Let's see. So of course everybody has their salutations and hellos. Mike says, I was trying to redo the interior of the astronomy mobile outreach vehicle today, to no avail. Nothing worse than maneuvering 4x8 sheets of plywood in a 25-mile-per-hour wind.
That's called a kite.
Yes,
Or a sail.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, be careful. I think it'll slap you in the face. Let's see. We're happy to, you know, people are happy to be here, or we're happy that you are here. Thank you. Mike says he I guess referring to the 25 millimeter 70 degree eyepiece, he must have one. I use that eyepiece all the time during outreach events. I have one very wide, Harold Locke says, I have one very wide field, I have one very wide field, good for viewing. The 2-inch, question mark. Do they have Plossel eyepieces? We will, Tarek, it's something that I'll announce here. We are going to have an eyepiece kit that will be out sometime later this year. It'll be in a nice case, so there'll be a bunch of eyepieces that you can buy in a whole kit, and they are going to be Plossels. So,
Right.
so more about that as that sample comes. We'll show it to you.
The cat's out of the bag now.
And Tarek says, if yes, then please send me one as a gift, 25 millimeter. Yeah. And Ken wanted to know the focal lengths, 25 millimeters, which you got. And then Harold Locke says, how is Jerry? Please let him know that he is missed. Jerry is getting better every day. I talked to Jerry almost every morning just to kind of follow up. He has been working. You know, he just doesn't want, you know, he's kind of laid up, so he doesn't want to do a show laid up, you know, which I totally get. But he is fine, and you know, he's going to be good as new here. You know, but it's going to take some more days. But I'll let him know from all of you that you guys are thinking of him. Mike Overacker says he has a 12.5-inch f8 that they called Big Bertha. So there you go. I don't know why, you know, maybe it was the same model. Maybe ours was a 12.5-inch as well. It was made by a company called Optical Craftsman, and I knew the owner of Optical Craftsman. His name was Dick Nelson, and he's part of a generation of telescope makers that kind of preceded Celestron and Meade Instruments and kind of these newer generation of telescope makers. You know, so I was really happy to know some of the old guard. You know, Tom Cave from Cave Optical, Dick Nelson from Optical Craftsman. I forget some names now, but there was a telescope line called Starliner. There was you guys might remember the Odyssey line of telescopes, which sometimes you still see Odysseys out there. They were Dobsonians, and you know, a few others that kind of have come and gone. But you it's cool to have known some of those people that were inspired by an even earlier generation of telescope makers.
So Scott, a
Yeah.
12-inch f8 is going to be, by the time you get everything done, the tube is going to be 110 inches long or something
It's
like
really
that.
long. It was really
So,
long,
just the focal length is going to be 100. What is it going to be? Going to be 96 inches. So
Yeah.
it's going to be 8 feet. But then you've got extra tube for the base and the mechanics and stuff.
Oh, it was a very heavy mount. It was a big
Yeah.
German equatorial mount, and the whole thing I think weighed 200 or 300 pounds, something
Yeah.
like that.
So
Yeah.
imagine
And had
too-
rotating rings on it and stuff. The one that we bought for Oceanside Photographic Center at the time, it belonged to a doctor, and he had it custom made from Optical Craftsman. So
Didn't you have a giant telescope on top of OPT?
that was Big Bertha. That was exactly the
Okay.
same model. They just didn't keep using it. And it's a shame because the mirror was exquisite quality. I mean, that mirror, I'm sure was, better than 10th wave surface, handcrafted, very, very nice. So, and a little tiny secondary. So the images it was like looking through a 12-inch or a 10-inch refractor. I mean, it was just beautiful. Images of Saturn with it were mind-blowing.
That's the benefit of a long focal length Newtonian is.
That's right.
The longer the
Little tiny
tube,
secondary. Yeah.
the smaller the secondary. The smaller the secondary, the higher the contrast the images get. So everything is a trade-off in life, whatever it is. If you want a fast Newtonian, like our 20-inch, our 20-inch Dobsonian telescope, the
Yeah.
eyepiece is 69 inches off the ground. I mean, literally, I can walk up and look in the eyepiece standing up straight, and I'm not tall, I'm 5'10", so I can walk up and look through the eyepiece of that telescope. But the trade-off for that, and not needing a ladder, maybe a step stool for shorter people, is that you've got a fairly large secondary that provides, reduces
That's true.
the contrast.
That's true. And people used to be really concerned about that, especially back in the day. The ideal Newtonian was, a tiny, tiny secondary. People would mount that secondary sometimes with like piano wire to get as thin of veins as possible. They were just so concerned over the central obstruction, and that became in the 1980s and early 1990s. The conversations about central obstruction on telescopes were, I mean, it was constantly talked about at star parties and astronomy clubs and stuff like that. And I guess the reason for it is that people were trying to weigh whether they should have a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope or a long focal length Newtonian or a refractor. Okay. Now these are three very, very different types of tools to do astronomy with. Schmidt-Cassegrain was big aperture, super compact. You could take it out anywhere at a moment's notice. That was the claim to fame for the Schmidt-Cassegrain. It revolutionized amateur astronomy at the time. It could do astrophotography. It could do a number of different things very well, but none of them like perfect, And so a lot of amateur astronomers become purists. They want, a certain kind of image quality and this kind of thing, which is great. It's wonderful. We see it a lot because, well, we mostly sell refractors. We do have reflectors as well, but the bulk of our sales are, in the Explore Scientific line are ED Apos. That's what we're known for, that and eyepieces. We're also becoming known for go-to systems because of the PMC8 is starting to mature now and people are using it in all different kinds of ways. We're even building right now, I don't know that you've seen this, Kent, maybe you have, but we're building a specialized custom PMC8 to drive this massive 2.5-ton telescope. And so that's getting finished up now. We're building out the cabling for it, but the motors for that telescope were like pounds. I mean, they're very heavy, but
I'd heard talk about it. I haven't seen the pieces, but I'd heard a little bit of talk about it. So
yeah. Next time you're in engineering, you can take a look at the build out of that. Maybe we should show that when they get it finished on video. I think that would be really cool.
So can we say what telescope it's going on? Is it private individual or
Not yet.
institution?
It's a private individual. They've got a big observatory, a big telescope, and they're modernizing it with a PMC-8 system. So, but that's that.
And that's, Scott, that's the beauty of the PMC-8 system. It's an extremely flexible, adaptable system. Jerry approached this with the idea of that in mind, and he brought.
We talked about it from the very get-go. Jerry and I, I was doing a lot of what if scenarios with him, and I said, well, what if there's an aging observatory? I got involved a lot with the historic observatories, and we talked a little bit on the last Global Star Party. We had the secretary of the Alliance of Historic Observatories, which Explore Scientific is a charter member of that. I helped arrange their first meeting. What breaks my heart about a lot of observatories is that there are telescopes that were built, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s, and even up into the 80s that were not computerized, okay? Manual telescopes for universities and also for research. And so a lot of them have become mothballed. They favor newer, high technology, computerized types of telescopes. And we started getting involved with the 40-inch at Yerkes. And, Yerkes was on the edge of being shut down, and in fact did get shut down, okay? But, we talked about the ability to take our PMC-8 system and computerize it. Could that be done? And Jerry said, well, the short answer is yes, but we would need more powerful drivers, bigger motors, these kinds of things. But the answer was yes. And there was some talk that we would actually do that. Now what they're doing is they just want to make the scope as original as possible, and restore it, which is also a beautiful thing to do, so, but yeah, that's we're becoming known for having a very flexible go-to system that is co-developed by customers, amateur astronomers. That's what the open go-to community is all about. So, but that is that's a long story from talking about the central obstruction that we were talking about earlier on telescopes. And, so amateur astronomers today are not so concerned about a large central obstruction. They're more concerned with convenience. Can they get, if they have a great big massive telescope, could they actually get at the eyepiece, without buying some sort of expensive, cherry picker elevator or something like that to go look through the eyepiece? Can you imagine having something? I mean, I think, have you seen the 60-inch at Mount Wilson?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. You probably will this year. Okay. So right. The 60-inch was also used as a Newtonian, and so was the 100. Okay. So they had Newtonian cages that would go on the end of these massive telescopes. And you would need like a lift, okay, to get up to where they would put the camera, the film plates on these scopes. So
it's like at Palomar, where you had to get up in the cage, the observing cage.
Yeah. Right. But they already have all the stuff for that, and the 200-inch was an amazing instrument because it could be changed from coup de focus to prime focus, like in a matter of minutes. Okay. On the 60-inch and the 100-inch at Mount Wilson, they had to actually remove the secondary cage, okay, to make it a Newtonian or to run coup de.
The engineering that went in those old telescopes is truly amazing what they were able to do
Yeah,
with
yeah, but
you
they
know,
were
60,
they were
80.
working out a lot of this at Mount Wilson, and then the masterpiece was Palomar, and it's still a masterpiece. You know, you go and you see it today, and it looks like a brand new telescope. You know, they've taken extreme good care of it, and it still does cutting edge science.
Yep. But to get up to that focus cage at that one, you have, it's like a big old horseshoe mount on, and you've got to climb up and then go across this little tiny gangway, and there's no
Yeah, that's what
rails.
they used to do. Yeah, they don't do it anymore. They don't
There's
do it
no
anymore.
rails. You just have basically a ladder on top of this 2-foot wide piece that you start climbing up, and then it curves
They
over. And
probably had like some sort of safety harness, you know, that they would clip on and
They-
climb up, and then
I asked, and they said when we were out there, and they said no. You know, Robert Einstein were out there, and we asked, and they said no. You just climb up there, and that transition from when you're going up,
yeah,
it curves over, and at some point you have to quit climbing and start walking, and it's this wide, and it's 50 feet or 60 feet up this curve, and then you get up there, and you gotta go lay this gangway over and walk across this gangway, and it's like, nope.
yeah.
Not doing that. You know,
So back in the day, they before they you know, if you worked up on prime focus, you know, they'd put glass plates down and they would hand guide the 200-inch telescope from that secondary position. And there was a chair that actually rotated around. You would sit in there, and gravity would keep you in a position where you could still sit down inside of there, because you imagine the telescope's tilted over like that. You're up here, okay? So Gene Mueller, who worked on the Palomar 200-inch for years and years, also discovered lots of comets and asteroids and all kinds of things. She had the privilege of using an eyepiece at prime focus on the 200-inch, okay? And the way that they would do this is they had a leather wrap that would go like a leather lace or something that would go around their hand, okay? So that they would hold, if they let go of the eyepiece, it wouldn't drop onto the mirror, okay? And then they would simply just put the eye to the eyepiece and then scan the 200-inch mirror by hand, okay?
wow.
Can you imagine what a treat that would have been? You know, I think she was looking at the Orion Nebula or something. She said that was a view that just was burned into her brain. I mean, you know, so yeah.
All right. Well, we've been going for our hour. Time to wrap up.
Yeah.
Flash sale on the eyepiece. It'll be up in hopefully 15 or 20 minutes. And you can cash in on a really great deal. You're not going to find this quality of eyepiece. You know, it's not waterproof, but a generous 70-degree field apparent field of view, 25 millimeter, 2-inch diameter eyepiece for a grand sum of $50. Now, you know, shipping is on top of that, but you have to be an Explorer Alliance member, either the free legacy or the free membership, which I think is called the Legacy, or the Platinum membership, either one. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up, Scott.
Okay. All right. So thanks to all of you. I'm reading your chats here. And Harold Locke says the last comment was, we'll have to download Scott's mind info, terabytes in the stellar clouds. You know, I don't know everything, but I one of the things that's been just fascinating, and Kent's experienced this too, as an amateur astronomer, and I know you guys too, that are out there watching the show, and you're amateur astronomers, we get exposed to some really cool information. We get to meet very interesting people, you know, and you know, once you know, as COVID lightens up, and it is, okay, we're going to be going to star parties again, and you'll actually get to meet, you know, some really, really amazing people in person, you know.
Okay,
and,
so Scott, my
yeah.
point, we were at the Arizona Dark Sky Star Party,
Yeah.
and we were inside at one of the events, and I'm sitting there, and I realize and I grew up, in the 70s reading Sky and Telescope and
Yeah.
popular mechanics, and I would read Sky and Telescope every word, cover to cover, every month. Did it for
Sure.
decades. And I realized I'm sitting here going, David Levy's sitting right there.
Yeah. Right. World famous comet discoverer. That's true.
Fred Aspanak is sitting right there. And I'm like,
Yeah, if there's a god of total eclipses, it is Fred Aspanak.
and Jack Newton is sitting right behind me. And I'm sitting there going,
Yeah, pretty good company, huh?
wow. And I literally had to call my dad and tell him, Dad, you won't believe this. And it was just so cool to have, 3 of those people that I grew up reading about, and I'm literally sitting in the middle of these 3 guys. It was just, it was a highlight, and the thing is, that's a highlight available for anyone who wants to come to the Arizona Dark Sky Star
That's
Party.
true.
You're going to have that caliber of people and that access to these people who are fantastic, wonderful human beings who are a pleasure to be around. You can't find a nicer person than David Levy, absolutely. So, anyway.
And this September, we're going to travel internationally to the Starmus Festival. And if you attend Starmus Festival, okay, if you can make the trip to Yerevan, Armenia, okay, and buy, I think the ticket's going to be $100 or $200 to get into Starmus, which is a multi-day event. You're going to meet you're going to meet people like Jill Tarter, okay. You're going to meet, you might meet Brian May from Queen, okay, who's also an astrophysicist. So you're going to be rubbing shoulders with top musicians, top physicists, top astronomers, and they're as interested and as passionate about it as you are as an amateur astronomer. So, I hope that you guys consider making the trip. So, but on any account, yeah, I think it is time to call it a night.
Yep.
And
Paul's got to get ready for On the Hunt. Paul's got to get ready for On the Hunt.
Yeah, he's got another show he's got to do.
It's amazing. I was calculating, Scott, we're doing on average probably about 25 to 30 hours, not counting the Global Star Party.
Yeah.
We're doing well over 20 to 25 hours a week of live broadcasts, and then add 5 or 6 hours potentially of the Global Star Party. So anyway, and On the Hunt. So let's go ahead and get out of here.
All good. Yeah, we're happy to do it. So
Yep.
Thanks everybody for watching. And we will be back tomorrow. And if you got clear skies out there, enjoy them. Until that time, keep looking up. So we will see you. And I'm going to run Kent's Magic Minute where you polar align with a broom again. So that's okay. Let's do it.
Hey everybody, Kent Marts here from Explore Scientific. Today I'm going to teach you how to polar align your telescope using a broom. Oh, you did a really good job. Why do you need to polar align? Well, with a telescope that has an equatorial mount, you have to get that equatorial axis lined up with the rotation of the Earth. And to do that, we're going to start with the tripod. We're going to decide which one of these legs is going to point north, and we're going to set the tripod down so that leg is pointed north. First thing I'm going to do is use a level to make sure my tripod is level. So if it's tipped one side or the other, that's going to cause your polar alignment to not be accurate. So we're going to use a level for that purpose. Then we're going to take a compass, and just to make sure that I've got it pointed north, I'm going to use the compass, line up and go, yep, that looks like it's pointed north. So here's what I'm going to do now. And this is where the broom comes in. The broom becomes a measurement device, if you will. So I'm going to put the broom on the ground with the tip of it right against the north leg of the tripod. I'm going to back away, And I'm going to use the compass. I'm going to close one eye. I'm going to use the compass to make sure that the broom is lined up with north, right? And so I can tell I'm off just a little bit. So I'm going to move the tripod just a little bit, and I'm going to turn the broom. And the broom is what I'm seeing that line with to line up. So closing one eye. Now my broom is lined up perfectly to magnetic north. Right here is we're going to talk about something called magnetic declination. The magnetic north is not true north. The difference between true north and magnetic north can be off by as much as 15 or 16 degrees if you live on the east coast or west coast of the United States. Around the world, it varies. And you have to figure out what that is for where you live. Because if you point at magnetic north, you're not going to be pointing at true north. You can be off by 15 degrees. Your go-to will never be accurate. So for this system to work, you have to know what that offset is and be able to program that into your compass. We're going to provide a link to a website and a video that talks about that a whole lot more. Now, we're going to make sure that the tripod is not angled and wrong. I'm going to use a small tape measure, and we're simply going to come down here and be careful not to move the broom. And I'm going to measure the distance from the tripod leg to the center of the broom. That is 470 centimeters. That way, it is 470, a little, I'm going to call that good. Actually, I'm going to move the tripod a couple of millimeters, just like that. So now we know that we're lined up true north with that leg, and these two legs are the equal distance from right here. So it's not pushed that way or that way. So now that we have the tripod with a good alignment to the north, we have to put the head on the mount. And that's going to entail this. We're going to be very careful when we do this because we don't want to move the tripod. We're going to put it on and simply screw on the polar head just like this. Remembering everything's going to the north. Now, if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're going to do the same thing. You can do the exact same in the southern hemisphere because it's not polar, it's polar alignment. We just don't use the star Polaris, which we're not using here. This is really good if you can't see Polaris, or if it's daytime and you want to do some solar viewing with a solar safe filter. So the last step of this process is to check the scale of your altitude, right? So we live at 36 degrees north, and I am going to turn the altitude until it gets to 36 degrees north. I'm going to stop, and that's it. With this system, using a broom, a compass, and a tape measure, you can achieve a good, decent starting polar alignment. Personally, I've used this, and I've got an amazingly close polar alignment. There's ways that you can use to refine your polar alignment, specifically drift alignment, but it all starts with a good polar alignment. You can do this in the daytime. You can do this in the nighttime if you can't see Polaris. It works all the time. It's a good way to get started learning the process of polar alignment. Isn't that great? I hope you've enjoyed this video. For Explore Scientific, I'm Kent Marts. Get out there and start doing astronomy. And keep looking up.
Exciting days lie ahead for ESA astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti as she trains for her second long-duration mission aboard the International Space Station, ISS. Known as Minerva, this mission will see the Italian ESA astronaut launched to the station from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida in a Crew Dragon spacecraft. For her first mission, Futura, which was provided by the Italian space agency ASI and began in 2014, Samantha flew to the ISS on a Soyuz vehicle.
Regarding the vehicle, the training experience has been definitely quite different. On Soyuz, I was a flight engineer, so sort of like a co-pilot. I had a very deep knowledge of the systems, and I was a full backup of the commander for all the tasks on board. On Dragon, I will be a mission specialist, so I will not have a direct interaction with the systems on board. That will be a responsibility of my two crewmates, Chell and Farmer. So my training load was a lot smaller in this case.
Like all ESA astronauts, Samantha will carry out many scientific experiments on the ISS and within the European Columbus laboratory. The space station's weightless environment provides opportunities for research that is not possible on the ground. On the ISS, Samantha may even have a brief crossover with ESA astronaut Matthias Maurer before his return to Earth. The name of Samantha's second mission, Minerva, is inspired by the Roman goddess of wisdom, handicrafts, and the arts. It's a homage to the competence and craftsmanship of all those who make human spaceflight possible. The name also represents the traits Samantha attributes to human spaceflight.
I also like to play with words, and for each letter that makes up the name Minerva, I can think of a word with that initial letter that gives context and meaning to my flight to space, but in a broader sense to human space flight. So M for marvel, I for inspiration, N for nourishment, which can be physical nourishment, but also spiritual nourishment. E for exploration, R for research, V for voyage, and A for adventure.
The theme of exploration, voyage, and the human achievements of spaceflight are also echoed in Samantha's new mission patch, which features Minerva's sacred owl. The eye of the owl is a yellow moon casting a white glow onto Earth. Its beak is reminiscent of the shape of the International Space Station, while the two lines also symbolize Samantha's two missions to space. The owl's body is made up of waves of ever darker blue, encouraging humankind to rise to the challenge as we move further into deep space. An ambition Samantha shares.
Yeah, I'm very excited, of course, about the next program of human space exploration, the Artemis program. ESA plays a major role in that we provide the service module for Orion, for the spaceship that will bring astronauts back to moon, to the orbit of the moon. And I really hope that this is just the beginning, and that Europe, the countries and the member states of ESA and ESA will be more and more ambitious when it comes to capabilities regarding human space flight, so that we can be more and more in the future equal partners as we expand our presence in space.
Samantha has a full schedule of training in the lead up to launch, splitting her time between the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany, and NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, as ESA counts down to another action-packed mission in orbit.
you.